A complete disaster, so I end up making late-night trips to this store more than a few times. I like to think I look ordinary, blending into the background. But I'm not naive. If I visit enough, the night shift staff might recognize me. This happened just last week, so the details are still painfully vivid in my mind. It was past midnight, and I was deep in my flow state, coding on my laptop. For some reason, my brain reaches its peak focus between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. But as anyone who's worked late knows, hunger sneaks up like a predator. Around 2 a.m., my stomach was growling, and I knew I had to shut down and grab something to eat. The road to the store is more of a lonely country lane than a busy highway, so the drive was quiet, uneventful, and almost comforting. I pulled into the store, ordered a sandwich, and wandered the aisles while waiting. Caffeine and my innate ADHD made me restless, so I paced. That's when I noticed something strange. At the end of one aisle, facing a row of refrigerators, a person sat cross-legged on the floor. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination. But when I glanced again, the figure was still there, motionless, staring at the fridge. I could see only the brown coat and jeans, but I needed a better look at his face. I tried to be discreet, maneuvering around the aisles to get a glimpse without being obvious. But the moment I turned the corner, he snapped his head toward me. His eyes were unnaturally wide, his lips trembling as if shivering, though the store was warm. His posture was twisted, tense, and the way he stared at me, it felt like he was already dead. Fear rooted me in place for a few seconds. Our eyes locked, and I couldn't look away, even though I desperately wanted to. Finally, I tore myself from the gaze and headed to the counter. My sandwich wasn't ready yet, and I couldn't resist sneaking glances toward the aisle. He never moved, but when I stepped outside after paying, I saw him again. From the store entrance, he bolted across the parking lot and leapt into a truck. My heart skipped. Who was this guy, and what was he planning at 2 a.m.? I sped home, anxious to leave that encounter behind. I thought that was the end of it, but the night had more terror in store. The shadowy figure wasn't finished, something about him felt deliberate, as if he had chosen me for reasons I couldn't yet comprehend. The next night, I couldn't shake the feeling from the previous encounter. Every shadow in my small apartment seemed heavier, every creak in the walls louder. I told myself it was paranoia. After all, it's just a random stranger in a convenience store. But the way he had stared, it stuck in my chest like a stone. Sleep came reluctantly, and when I finally drifted off, my dreams were invaded by a distorted version of that night. The store lights flickered, the aisles twisted into impossible angles, and he was always there, watching. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart racing. By 1 a.m., hunger drove me again toward the same convenience store. My instincts screamed to avoid it, but something deeper, a morbid curiosity, perhaps, pulled me out the door. The drive felt longer this time, each mile stretching as if the road itself was warning me. As I parked, the store looked ordinary, harmless. I brushed off my unease and walked inside, trying to convince myself I wasn't afraid. That's when I saw him again. Sitting at the end of the same aisle, cross-legged, unmoving. Just waiting. This time, I didn't try to sneak a peek. I approached cautiously, voice trembling despite my effort to stay calm. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked. No response. His head didn't turn. He didn't blink. It was as if he wasn't human, or maybe he was just something I wasn't ready to understand. The store staff looked at me curiously as I fumbled through my purchase, but I didn't care. I just wanted to leave. As I exited, I froze. There, by the parking lot, he stood near my car. My heart pounded violently. I hadn't even noticed him leave the store. I locked the doors, started the engine, and glanced in the rearview mirror. He was gone. Just like that. But the sense of being hunted lingered. I knew he wasn't far. Something told me this wasn't random, and I wasn't imagining it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the lights on, listening to every small sound, convinced that at any moment, he might be there. And the strangest part? I couldn't tell if fear or fascination was stronger. I thought he was gone, but in the shadows of my home, I felt his presence growing, and this time, he wouldn't just be waiting in the store. The following days were unbearable. Every time I stepped outside, I felt eyes on me. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, following me along the sidewalk. Friends noticed my jitteriness, but I brushed it off with weak excuses. No one could know. I was beginning to suspect he wasn't just in the store anymore. Late one night, unable to bear staying inside, I went for a walk to clear my head. The streets were eerily quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. That's when I saw him again, across the street, standing beneath a flickering street lamp. My stomach turned to ice. He didn't move, didn't breathe. He just existed, perfectly still, yet utterly alive. I ran. I don't even remember making it home. The door slammed behind me, and I leaned against it, chest heaving, trying to convince myself it was coincidence. But the feeling of dread had already rooted itself deep inside me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound, the wind, the creaking pipes, the distant hum of traffic, felt like he was moving closer. A few nights later, I woke to the sound of whispering. Faint, almost indistinguishable, like someone speaking just beyond comprehension. I froze. The whispers grew louder, yet I could make no words from them. Trembling, I reached for my phone, and froze again. The screen lit up with a single notification, "I see you." Panic surged through me. I bolted out of bed, checking every corner of my apartment. The doors were locked. The windows were shut. And yet, I felt it. Him. Watching me from the shadows, patient, inevitable. I couldn't tell how long I stayed like that, heart hammering, paralyzed by fear. But one thought kept looping in my mind: this wasn't about random encounters anymore. He was hunting me. And he had been all along. I thought the store was just the beginning. Now, even the safety of my own home couldn't protect me, and I realized he wasn't just near. He was everywhere. By the time a week had passed, I was running on caffeine and panic. Every night, I checked the locks twice, sometimes 3 times, and still didn't feel safe. The silence of my house wasn't comforting anymore, it was suffocating. Around 2 a.m. one night, I snapped. I told myself I needed to get out, clear my mind, maybe drive for a while. I didn't even realize I was heading toward that same highway until the dim glow of the convenience store appeared in the distance like a ghostly beacon. I told myself I wouldn't stop, just pass by, prove to myself I wasn't afraid. But as I slowed down near the parking lot, my heart lurched. There was his truck. The same rusted pickup I'd seen that night. Parked crookedly under the flickering sign, engine off, lights dead. My breath caught. Maybe it was coincidence, or maybe he had been waiting this entire time. I pressed my foot to the gas and tore past the store. For a few blessed seconds, I felt relief. Then, in the rearview mirror, 2 headlights flared to life. My stomach twisted. They were getting closer, too fast. Within moments, the truck was behind me, blinding me with its high beams, honking, roaring like a monster out of control. I gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I swerved, trying to shake him off, but every move I made, he mirrored. The sound of the truck's engine filled the night like a beast's growl. I could feel the vibrations in my bones as he rammed into my rear bumper. The car jolted forward, my heart nearly stopping. This wasn't some drugged stranger anymore. This was deliberate. Intentional. He rammed me again, harder this time. The highway blurred, and my thoughts dissolved into pure instinct. If I slowed, he'd kill me. If I kept going, I might die anyway. The air stank of burning rubber and fear. I made a choice. I slammed the brakes, cut the wheel, and watched as his truck shot forward, spinning wildly out of control. It veered off the road and vanished into the dark field beyond. For a moment, there was silence. Just the ticking of my car engine and my ragged breathing. Then, faintly, I thought I heard something, metal crunching, a scream, or maybe just the wind. I didn't wait to find out. I sped off, heart still hammering, the darkness swallowing everything behind me. I thought it was over, that I'd escaped him at last. But evil doesn't die easily, and some things, once they find you, never let go. I didn't stop driving until the sun began to bleed into the horizon. The warmth of daylight did little to calm my shaking hands or my racing heart. The highway behind me was just empty asphalt now, but the memory of the truck, the growling engine, the way he'd mirrored every move, clung to me like a second skin. I pulled into a motel just off the next exit, exhausted, my body buzzing with adrenaline and fear. I locked the door, pulled the blinds tight, and tried to breathe. But sleep was a stranger, and every shadow on the walls twisted into shapes that weren't there before. Hours later, I convinced myself to check my phone. And then it happened. A message. From an unknown number. "Nice try." The words burned into my skull like acid. My stomach dropped. He knew where I was. He had never needed to follow me physically, he only needed me to know he could. I bolted from the motel, screaming into the empty morning, leaving everything behind. My car, my bag, even the jacket I clutched like a lifeline. Every exit I took, every street I turned down, I imagined his truck behind me. Sometimes, I swore I could see the flicker of headlights in the distance, even during daylight. I never returned home. Friends and family couldn't understand why I disappeared, but I couldn't tell them. How could I explain that fear itself had followed me, that some people, or some shadows, didn't care about distance, boundaries, or law? Now, years later, I drive across highways with my eyes constantly scanning the mirrors. Sometimes, in the corner of my vision, I see it. A rusted pickup. A shadow that waits, patient, eternal, relentless. And I know, deep in my bones, that some horrors don't end, they only wait. Because some shadows don't fade when the light comes. They wait. And they remember.